Hi everybody, I'm Catherine Preston, and along with my colleague Jeannie Osnes, I'm half of the team that brings you The Botanist in the Kitchen. This is spring of 2020 though, and so I am right now sheltering in place in Santa Clara County, California, so you might call me the botanist stuck in my kitchen. But you gotta cook, right? So regular visitors to the site know that Jeannie and I write pretty long, detailed, dense academic posts with a lot of well-researched information. And so I thought that during this time of sheltering in place, we would kind of try something different, which is to invite you into my kitchen, because like I said, you gotta cook, and just show you some of the things that I actually have on my own cutting board. We are gonna start off with asparagus because asparagus season has just hit in California, and for now at least the farmer's market is open, so yay for asparagus. Asparagus is also kind of an interesting vegetable because it looks a little weird to some people. It doesn't look like your regular stem, but it is a stem. It's an example of a stem. So I'm just going to very quickly show you the stem of an asparagus. Okay, so here's one. Here's another one. I actually bought these asparagus last Sunday, and this is Friday, but as soon as I get home, I like to snap them off at the bottom and just put them in a cup of water. Well, that's a baseball schedule. Very sad. No baseball this year. And it keeps them actually quite fresh in the refrigerator, and the flavor doesn't suffer too much at all. Okay, so how do we know that this is a stem? All right, well, like many stems, it is round. That's not always the case, but there's some flattened stems, but these are more or less round. And what you can see along this stem are these little beak-shaped triangles, and those are actually equivalent to leaves. They're more scale-like. You might call them bracts. Bracts are modified leaves, which are usually associated with reproductive structures. And here, these aren't directly associated with reproductive structures. But if you look at the end of the asparagus, let me see if I can get it pointed towards the camera exactly right. You can see that they occur in a Fibonacci spiral. And then you can also see kind of going along the stem like this. They're growing out of the stem in a spiral, the way you would expect leaves on many stems to arise from the stem. So that's another way that you know that it's a stem. Also, usually if you're looking at a stem, the leaves or leaf-like structures get closer together towards the tip, and they're quite close together at the tip, and they're originating there, and it would keep growing. That's another way that you know it's a stem. Asparagus is a monocot, and a monocot, we go into detail on this in the blog, but it's a clade of flowering plants. It's a big branch on the tree of flowering plants, and there's some diagnostic aspects of monocots. You might remember your kind of elementary school botany that monocots have flower parts in multiples of 3. Their leaves have parallel veins like grasses do, or irises or lilies. Those are monocots as well. But another thing that's really interesting is that the vascular tissue, the veins, which carry the sugars around in the plant and of course the water up from the stem, instead of being in kind of a ring around the stem, are actually scattered throughout. Now they can be kind of regular, but they're nevertheless all the way through. And I've got a better picture of this, but I think you can actually see that. You see the tiny little slightly darker green in that in the white But what this means is that if your asparagus is a little bit tough, you're actually not going to get rid of those veins, which are part of the toughness, by peeling the outside, because the veins are all the way through. Nevertheless, when I prepare my asparagus, I always take off these scale-like leaves, just because they bug me. So I always do that. Another interesting thing about leaves is that leaves are typically associated kind of in their, what we call the axil, but like in the crook of the leaf, where the leaf meets the stem, they're usually associated with a bud or a branch. So a bud that might grow out to be a branch or a flower or something like that. And you can't really see that so much farther down on the stem. But when you get higher up, and actually here is one that's way more obvious. There we go. You can see that these, if you pull one of these bracts down, there's a little branch. Okay, so I'm just going to peel it right on off there. And you can see that there is a branch growing out of the axil there. And it has itself has some little scale type things that in their axils also have little buds. So if this had not been harvested, then this whole thing would have elongated and it would have become branchy and started to flower. Smallish flowers, but would have started to flower. And asparagus is what we call dioecious, so there would be separate stems that are male, so they make only pollen-bearing flowers, and female making only seed-bearing flowers. So that is your asparagus anatomy and morphology for the day. Now, if you would like to prepare asparagus the way I prepare asparagus, I think it's kind of delicious and super simple. I take all these off and then I sort of pile them up in a tray and douse them liberally with olive oil, salt, pepper, put them in a hot oven, 400 degrees, something like that. Let the tips get nice and crispy and browned. And with luck, the stem, the main fat part of the stem, will get kind of soft, but still stay real juicy. So it's very, very good. Anyway, happy eating, and I will see you tomorrow or the next day.